Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the build of our van. And today what we're going to do is concentrate covering the top portion of our sliding door here. And I think I have an idea in mind and we're just going to do it. So with that, I'll show you how I started, how I made my templates, cut my wood, and we'll get things covered, put up there, installed, and we'll take a look and see what we've got left. I know that once we get everything in there, there are a couple of things I would like to do or have in place here. So I'll show you what those are as we get going on. So let's take a look and see how I did this. Alright, so to start with, I knew that I want my panel to lay flat against this section right here, so we're going to be covering that up till about the end of our ceiling here, so it looks kind of uniform. So that was a platform here, and then of course we have the ceiling, and then from this flat section on over, I figured out where from the end of our roof here over is about 3 inches, and so I put a batten up here, and that's going to serve as a place to fasten the front section on. And then once the front section's on, then I cut the piece for the bottom here, and then it'll just attach on here. I'll probably use some self-tapping screws, about 3 of them here to hold the back, and it'll be held together here in the front. So the first thing I did, this rail right here, that's for my sliding curtain, so we're gonna have to work around that. So I took a piece of cardboard and I set it in place where where I thought I'd need everything. Just made a little notch to go around that. So that is our notch, and you can see it comes to the end of our ceiling right here. So that's where I started, and then to get the height, I just laid another piece of cardboard, kind of eyeballed it, sort of square, you know, and so I made that section. And then for this back part, see if I can't get you around here as well. Well, it's kind of dark on here, but so for this section here, to work around that, because my base section here just lays flat here, so it's a 90. And then I started working on the bottom, so I had to make a template to go around that. And this here is my cardboard template, so when it sets in place, it sets nice and even around that, and that's pretty much how that's going to go. And so to get that, I used a if I can get the doggone thing out here, contour gauge. So anyway, I just set that in place, pushed it where I thought I'd need it, and turned it over, set it on my template, and marked it out and cut it. So a couple of test fits later, that fit just fine, and so we ended up with this little notch-like deal. So when I set my base on there, it's going to curve right around there, and then we'll cover up this section a little bit later. I may want just a little bit of electronic in here, maybe my battery monitor, I will see. So then for the front section as well, I had to figure out this little curve right here, because my panel goes up here, and then this fits in here and slides together just like that, curves right around there, so it butts up against my wood. So I'm not going to be able to do this with one hand, so let's see if I can't point you in the right direction here. Alright, so once I had the templates made that I needed to notch around all my little fittings here on the van, I took those templates, dug out a piece of 1/4-inch plywood, ripped it down to the height and length that I needed, and transferred the templates onto that and cut everything out. So let me swing this around. You can see how this first piece fits. Alright, so this is the first piece that has the notch on it, and that just sits up in here. It's going to butt up against our batten that we put on the ceiling. Goes around our little track right here. And then, if I can do it with two hands here, the next piece sets up in here, just like so. And we'll have that all boxed in just like that. So then we'll go ahead and put our carpeting over that. And like I said, we'll probably have a couple of self-tapping screws here. There's nothing going to be installed inside or on top or through because it's pretty shallow. So anyway, that's that part. So on the back of this 1/4 inch, I did put a little batten on here so that the bottom, when I put the bottom on, that it will have a place to fasten to that I can take on and off. Because I think I'm going to have a couple of lights hanging down here, so we're going to have to run some wire through there, and it'll be easy access. Just remove a few screws and be done with that. So next thing to do on the list is get these pieces carpeted up, and then we'll try to get those installed and see what it looks like. I think it's going to look pretty nice, and then figure out exactly where I want to run some wiring and lights and all that stuff, and then we'll do that later once we start installing all the electrics. Okay, let's get the moving on. Alright, so I went ahead and covered my wood, and so here's the back side of it. Got my little ledge for the bottom, and here's the front. So we will test fit these things. Looks pretty decent. And then for the bottom, we'll get that in as well. Looks pretty good. So you probably can't see, so hang on, take a little flight. Alright, so bottom's not quite tucked up under there yet, but it'll sit something like that. And so there is our cover over the door, and it fits in the channel back here nice and tight. Looks good. That area looks pretty clean, and as well as this section here. So I think that's going to do the job. It does hide that really well, and when it's all said and done, I'll have two lights mounted under here that'll point down towards the direction of the stove. And then for the face, I was thinking about some anodized metal or something magnetic that I can put my little magnetic latches on. So those are like 60-pound pull, and if I can put those along the top here, then I'll have a place that I can hang towels and hats and whatever else I think I might hang. But I think that's going to work. So my next step is to go ahead and attach this to the ceiling, and then we can worry about attaching the bottom, getting that installed as well, and we'll almost be done with that part. So that was actually relatively easy. I think the longest part of the whole deal was making the templates. Just make sure I've got them in the right spot, nice little curves, and most of it's all hidden because I carpeted the paneling, so no mistakes on it just yet, and I think it's going to look good when it's finished. Alright, so let me go ahead and get set up. We are going to use, just like I did on the ceiling and the walls, a number 6 by 3/4, and these are black anodized screws. We'll get those attached in there and almost be done with that part. That's going to be pretty cool. And I do have some self-tapping screws that I might put about 3 along the back, right over the door. Just keep things from, jumping out of track up here. And yep, call that good. So let's get set up and do that. All right, so what I've decided to do is go ahead and mount the lights onto my bottom piece here, which will go up on the bottom here, obviously. And these are the little lights that I'm going to use above the stove. And we can angle those and they're touch on and off. And I think those are going to look pretty cool. So I went ahead and put a little backer block on each spot here that I'm going to put the light, drilled my hole. Now I'm going to go ahead and mount this little bracket on here. We can run our wires through, put our lights on, get that installed. Do that for each side. Connect these two, let the wires run down a little bit. They're going to come right down through here. We'll just let them dangle. And then for this top section here, I'm going to go ahead and remove that because I think I'm going to go ahead and put some electronics up here. I'm going to put my off switch, on and off switch for the inverter, and the Linux battery monitor right next to it. And we can run those wires through the cabinet and down below and into the battery bank once everything gets installed. So we're going to go ahead and install these lights and then get everything wired up, and then we'll remove this top section, go ahead and get the holes cut out for that, get our electronics installed, and dangle our wires down, get everything ready to start running back. So that's going to be what we're doing now. So let's do it. Yeah, I think that's going to work. Alright, so those are installed, and those will kind of be down something like this. And that way we can angle them down, and we can swivel them left and right, wherever we need them to be. And I think that's going to look pretty good. Yep, going to look good. Alright, so now what we want to do, once these are installed now, is we want to go ahead and get them wired together. So we're going to put some connectors here, take a piece of wire, we're going to run it over, connect these two, and then we'll run the wire down and just let it dangle a little bit. And I may have to add or trim, but we're going to go ahead and install those. And for that, I do have some 16 gauge connectors that we're going to be putting on. So we'll put those in there just like so, and then we'll take our crimpers and crimp those on. So let's try this handy dandy little thing out. See if that works. Ooh, that's pretty nice. So I install ferrules on the end of this. Let's give you a shot here. So I have ferrules that I installed on the end of my wires and crimped those on, and then we just insert that into our connector like so, and crimp that down. These things they work like a charm. So let me go ahead and get this one crimped on, and yeah. Perfect. Yeah, I like those. Now we'll go ahead and trim up some wires, get those connected, and then we'll run those on down out to the bottom here, which will end up feeding into our cabinet. So let me go ahead and get this wired up, and then we'll work on the top part. Shall we? So let me show you my cool little tool. So here's the ferrules, and they're color coded by different wire gauge. We're using 16 gauge, so we're going to need the black ferrules, which will be these here. And then we have the crimper, which is right here. So let's go ahead and get that out of here. and then the ferrule goes in there and just crimps her right on down. So we take our little ferrule and slip over the end of our wires, and we'll get it crimped down. So let me see how well we can do this. Alright, so we'll slip that over our wire. Oh yeah, I love the fit of that. It just fits so tight. So if you take a look, you want the end of that wire just out ever so slightly, and that collar just fits right over the wire. So that's pretty handy. So we're going to go ahead and set that on there. And then we'll take our crimper, push that in, and give it a good squeeze. And that's what it looks like once it's all crimped on. And that is not going anywhere. So we'll get the other one on here. Set our ferrule crimper on there. And crimp. Look at that. That is excellent. Hey. Get that in there. And crimp. Yeah, that does such a great job. Alright, so that's what it's going to look like. I got my wire hanging down here, which will tie into the cabinet somewhere at some point. And I've got my lights, which can swivel left and right and point down to wherever I need those. I think that's going to look pretty sharp. Get some light on there. Both of them here. Oh yeah. That way you got some light when you're cooking. Yep. I think that'll look pretty decent. Alright. So now we'll take that down, set that off, and then we'll take and get that top section off. Alright, now that we got our piece down, we're going to go ahead and cut the holes out for our Linux and for our inverter switch. So let's do it. And there we go. Alright, so we have our holes in here. Now all we have to do is go ahead and install our gadgets and get those in place. Then we'll get this one fastened down, and then we go ahead and dangle our wires down against the wall and reinstall our board up here, and then we get the bottom piece on with our lights and everything. So alright, so we're hooked up there, so we're heading in the right direction. Alright, so we got that on. Now we'll get the bottom installed and tuck these wires over here out of the way. I think that's going to work. Sweet. Alright, so we now have our shelf in, and I think that looks pretty good. Alright. Yep. So that looks pretty good. And then what we'll end up doing is tapping a hole here for our electrical wires to go in. We'll run them down and all the way through. So that'll look pretty decent. Alright, let's button that baby up. Alright, well, I think that's going to do it for this little video. A little short and sweet, but we did get something accomplished, which was to cover the top of our doorway here. So I think that's going to work just fine. I am going to put a couple of self-tapping screws, 3 of them actually, on the bottom here into the strut here on the top of the door, just to keep things from moving out. And our lights look pretty good. Can't wait to get the electricity hooked up and get some power to it. Alright, so I think that's going to be next, is perhaps do a little bit of electricity and see if we can't get things wired up. Looking forward to that, getting the batteries installed and inverter and all the good stuff. And then we still have a little bit of paneling left to do over the doorway and the back doors. Get those done. The rest of it's going to be electrical and water. and then a bunch of little trinkets that we're going to do. So anyway, hey, thanks for sticking it out, watching the videos. Appreciate all the views and all the comments. And yep, really having a lot of fun with the van. So until next time, please, as always, stay tuned.